What's up guys, Josh here, 6 from SkidTackle.com. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how to build a reliable AR-9. They're starting to get more popular. I definitely love them. I went with a Glock mag setup for mine just because I have Glocks and I have 33 rounders around. So they're a little finicky. I mean, you got to go with the right parts, and I'm gonna go through what I've been through and the money I've spent and parts I've discarded because I couldn't get it working the way I wanted to. I mean, it worked, but it's just in terms of recoil and cycling certain loads. So to start off, this is New Frontier Armory Glock lower. It's the last round bolt hold open right here. This last round does hold open with this mechanism on the outside. New Frontier Armory upper, GunTech Amlock rail, Faxon 8.5 inch 9mm barrel, and Shockwave blade. Everything else is just my stuff. Osprey 45. So I'm gonna open it up here. See the parts I got. Actually got it really tight with that tensioning screw. So let me try to get this out. So to start off, this is a lot of thing that's a thing that's overlooked is the trigger. Not necessarily the trigger, but the spring mechanism. A lot of people don't know, but with the blowback setup, the hammer spring is something that really helps to keep the bolt locked a little bit longer. So you want to go with a standard weight hammer spring. If anything, go heavier if you want to keep the bolt closed for longer. So once you shoot, the hammer holds the bolt closed, and it's giving it resistance to keep it locked longer. So don't go with the lightweight hammer spring, just go with the standard weight. Let's see what else we got here. This is my bolt. This is New Frontier Armory also, and it actually comes off. I don't really need that feature, but that's how it goes. This one's cut for the Glock mag setup, so if you're going with Glock mags, you need that cut. In my opinion, get a bolt with this cut anyway, even if you're going with a Colt mag setup, just to have that feature available if you change later. I really like this bolt for one reason, and that's the weight. If we look here, this is where the hammer goes through, and they put steel everywhere that's not in the way of anything, so it's a very heavy bolt. I think I weighed mine in at 16.7 ounces. But with this bolt, there's some drawbacks. The firing pin sucks. The one that comes with it lasted like 3 rounds for me. I have a CMMG firing pin here. I got about 2,000 rounds in it, and it works perfect. So go with the CMMG firing pin, or any kind of stainless firing pin. If you get this bolt, get rid of the one that's already in there. It's gonna break. And with this one, I had I guess you could call it a gas key. Not really a gas key, but it came loose while I was shooting one time. So a good thing to do is take it apart, and I rock set mine. I really don't think you have to stake it. There's not a lot of heat with the 9mm AR, like a gas key impingement AR-15. So just rock set it and you'll be solid. Now another thing that's really important with AR-9s is the buffer and spring setup. Now I used to be of the mentality that to go with a stronger spring, I thought that would keep it locked, the bolt closed longer, and I would go with the lighter buffer, but I've changed my ways. I've found that you really need a heavier buffer and a lighter spring, especially with the Glock mag setup where the feeding of it is very critical. So I have a carbine spring that I zip tied it down to solid height, and I let it compress for about 2 weeks, and it really weakened it, which is good. This is a CAC 10-ounce buffer, and it has the weights in it. No, actually actual sliding weight, so it's not like a solid buffer. This is good also when the bolt goes forward, all the weights are in the back, so when it slaps against the barrel extension, it doesn't transfer all that force at once. It waits a little bit, and then those tungsten weights really push there. It's also good for full auto if you ever come across a full auto gun. The weights, they'll make sure there's no bolt bounce. But CAC 10-ounce buffer actually weighs 10.89 ounces. So with these two, with the weaker spring and the heavier buffer, you get slower feeding, which is, like I said, critical. I'll show you right now. I'll put it back together. And actually have 2 quarters in here. Just to, it takes off a little bit of the bull catch force. I'd say about 1/4 inch, not too much. So I'm going to put this back together. Bolt. Alright, and if we look over here at the feed cone, not really feed ramp. Let me get a flashlight up in here. You can see the angle of it. Now this is a Faxon barrel, like I said, and their feed cones are the best. They're more shallow, not as steep as other ones on the market. So let me get around in there so you can see how this thing has to feed. As you can see there, it's actually pointed up, but once the bolt starts moving, it starts to dip down. So this Faxon feed cone, the slower weight cyclic rate of the bolt, both ensure smooth feeding. And like I said before, when I had the heavier spring, lighter buffer, this thing was feeding so fast and it was denting bullets. So I'm gonna take some shots really quick. These are my 9mm reloads, 147 grain, and powder's really low, just enough to cycle a Glock. All right, let's try it out. Get some eyes on. Just got it zeroed, 20-yard zero, and this is a Vortex Vortex Spitfire AR. Let's go out here a little bit. Now you can really like feel this thing just cycling really softly, which is good. Bam. So, another thing with 9mm ARs, well, I haven't, like I said, I haven't had a Colt mag setup, but with the Glock setup and that feed it has to do, can't use hollow points, which is a downside. So I'm gonna load some really quick. These are steel cased 145 grain. These are actually Silver Bear rebranded. But I mean the hollow points, I mean it has a shape of any other hollow point. There's some that will work, like the ones that are more pointed, like the Hornadies, but these traditional, you know, really big hollow points, they won't work. Of course on camera it's gonna work, but we're gonna get right here up on the port here and try to feed it a little bit closer. Take some shots. Like I said, of course on camera it works, but I've seen that every now and then it nose dives into the barrel extension, like right before the feed cone. So, I mean, try your different hollow points. Some may work, some may not, but you really need one where the hollow point is like steeper and smaller hollow point, not like these wider ones. I've had problems with these, but I guess that's about it. 115 grain ammo, 147 FMJs, basically FMJs, they all work flawlessly, and it doesn't get too dirty. Just very reliable gun because it has all this bolt weight and not a lot of moving parts like a DI AR-15. So this is Josh 06. Contact me if you have any questions or need any help putting one of these together. And check out the website skidtechnical.com. And thanks for watching.